Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
Welcome to the Tiberius Show today, and I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, we're looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Today's is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk to someone that works at an orphanage. Well, do you have any idea what happens at an orphanage? Well, neither do I. Well, let's find out. Let me introduce our next guest, the one, the only, the amazing Anna Hagstrom.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me, Tiberius. This is going to be fun.
Well, thank you for being on the show. Okay, so you were as a missionary to Mexican children at an orphanage. For most of us, I have no idea what that means. Can you explain it?
Well, sure. Live in Mexico, and there are a lot of children's homes here for kids that are, not safe in their own homes, or maybe their parents have died. And so there are state-run homes and there are private homes. And I work in a private home that handles children or girls only. So there are some that are boys only, some are mixed, but the orphanage I work in, and I like to call it a girls' home, is for girls only.
Okay. So when did you get the idea of going to Mexico to help local orphanages?
Well, my husband and I retired to Mexico back in 2016, but we didn't know exactly why God wanted us to be here. And it wasn't until, about a year and a half ago when the orphanage moved actually next door to us. And I got involved at that point as a volunteer. And I think God was always putting it on my heart to work with children. And I did that my whole life. As a pastor's wife, I was always working with kids in Sunday school and that kind of thing. So when we came to Mexico, I'm like, okay, how are you going to use me here? And when the orphanage moved in next door, I got my answer.
Well, how many kids are at the orphanage? Like, is there like a maximum limit, or do you take them in no matter what?
Well, right now we have about 25 girls, and that's basically all that this house can manage. They are in the middle of a big building project, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but that will house over 100 children. And so we're super excited about that when that building gets completed. But for now, there's 25 girls, ranging from 3 to 18.
Okay. So did you help found the orphanage, or are you just volunteer?
Well, I'm a paid position now, but I started as a volunteer. The orphanage has been in existence for about 14 years. It was started by an American couple who felt that God was leading them to Mexico. And he was a doctor and she was a nurse. So they brought some really great skills into business, I'd say, or ministry, however you want to look at it.
Well, how many people are there to help the kids?
Oh, between the volunteers and the staff, I would have to, I don't know precisely, but I would guess at least a dozen.
Okay. So now, most of what I know about orphanages, I learned from the movie Annie. Are kids really just waiting for a rich person to adopt them?
Well, in this particular setting, I can't speak for orphanages in general, but for our orphanage, there probably won't be a lot of adoptions going on. We're giving them a safe haven as they grow. And if family members surface and want to take them back, then certainly the Mexican government will let them go back with family. But it's not like a typical orphanage where they're waiting for adoptions.
Okay, so when was the first time that you traveled to the orphanage? And when did you decide that you wanted to help?
Well, like I said, they had moved in next door to us. And so the first time I went was on Halloween, actually. I dressed up in a costume and I took over a plate of cookies and I introduced myself and let them know that I would love to be involved as a volunteer. And so that's where we got started.
Okay. So, kind of tell me, how does it work? Do you sign up and have to pay for all your expenses to get there, or does someone else do that for you?
Well, I up until the time I was on staff, I was donating my time and any of the resources that I purchased to work with the girls. But now
Mhm.
that I'm on staff, I'm able to, be reimbursed for that, or the orphanage will just make those purchases.
Okay. So, when you're with the kids, what do you do? Like, do they go to school?
They do go to school. Um, there's a number of schools in the area that they are transported to. Some of them don't have like a birth certificate, so they have to go to a
Mm.
special school. Because in Mexico, you have to present your birth certificate to get into school. And if they're on the street and don't have such documentation, they go to a special school. Now, when I work with them, we play games, we do crafts. Of course, I teach them in the Bible. That's kind of my expertise.
Mhm.
And we just have fun. I just love on them. And that's so rewarding.
Mhm. Well, at what age can a kid leave the orphanage, and do some kids stay longer?
That's a great question. In fact, 18 years old is when they reach the age of majority in Mexico and they would be on their own. A lot of times girls have reached that age and they've built relationships within, we call it a family, and they want to stay, but they come back maybe as staff, so
Hmm.
they help out or volunteer, but they don't actually live there anymore.
Yeah. Well, what kind of activities do they have at the orphanage?
All kinds of activities. It's the director is constantly looking for ways to involve the kids in the community. I've seen where they've taken place in races. We've also put together little plays and presentations, and they do those. We have a like on along the lake, we call it the Malecone. There's places to perform, and they'll perform on the
Mhm.
Malecone. They'll also go to churches and perform there as well. Um, they're
Mhm.
sometimes taken off site to do things with some of the volunteers that have pools
Mhm.
or have a big house where they can stay overnight. Um,
That's true. Mhm. Well, does the orphanage have any current projects right now?
yes, indeed. The building project, we are underway. We've already, I believe this will be about a $1.5 million project when it's all said and done. So fundraising is
Wow.
underway. And like I said, it's going to house 100 girls. And um, that's the main focus right now, other than, the day-to-day sort of
Mhm.
maintenance and that sort of thing. And I'm learning all of this now that I'm on staff. I feel like before
Mm.
as a volunteer, you just sort of show up and love on the girls. But now
Mhm.
on staff, I'm getting to see a little bit behind the scenes and
Yeah.
what that means.
Mhm. So, what supplies does the orphanage need the most?
Oh, that's a great question because with this new building project, everything. Right now, we're looking for donors that might want to um, like purchase all of the kitchen appliances
Yes.
or maybe more beds. Um, computers, of course, are always a big need. Um, but actually, getting the building done is
Yeah.
is the big goal because then we can really expand our reach to the children we can help and touch.
Well, is there any difficulties like from getting supplies from America to Mexico?
There can be, um, particularly, electronics
Yes.
and the electronics as well that are in the U.S. Are all in English, and these girls are Spanish speakers. So then there would
Ah.
need to be things done, and that it happens. A lot of times, the monetary or the financial assistance is helpful because that way we can purchase
Yes.
those things, and um, at least up until recently, we could purchase a lot more with the U.S. dollar in Mexico. But now the
Mm.
peso is super strong, and so that's kind of switched. So
Ah,
it's actually better to buy things here. You can get more for the dollar.
I see. So, if you were to tell me about one child's story that really touched your heart, who would it be and why?
Well, I can't give out names, but there is one girl in particular. She's probably been with the orphanage since, just the first of the year. And she's 12 years old. And she had been pretty much on her own for 2 years. Her parents had left her behind and they never came back for her. So she doesn't know if they're alive or dead, if they've just forgotten her. And so she was caught in the system. And there is a system here that isn't necessarily so pretty if you're not already in an orphanage or being cared for. But she came to the orphanage and I met her, and my heart immediately went to her. Um, she had so much anger and so much fear, and she didn't know anything about God. And so over the last 3 or 4 months, she has really blossomed. And to see that sort of transformation happen, knowing that it just doesn't happen. It's the love of Jesus that has really brought her out of her shell. She wants to be my volunteer. She wants to help me. She bends over backwards to be my helper. It's just precious.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's the best part about working in an orphanage?
The innocence of children, even though they've been through such horrendous things, their innocence shines through, and they're open. They're open for love.
Mm-hmm. Well, now here seems like a good time to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we are back here talking with Dana Hagstrom. So, Dana helps kids out at an orphanage. So, we now know what a volunteer at an orphanage does and how you help kids that are there. But can you give some examples of the things that you enjoy doing the most at an orphanage?
I love the art projects. I love to get those kids' hands dirty. They love to get their hands dirty and to make beautiful things. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really my favorite. And you can see behind me in any of the camera angles, I got to move. Behind me, I've got my whole. You can see all of the tubs and bags and boxes full of craft supplies that I take each time I go.
Well, that's pretty cool. Well, do you have any suggestions to people that want to help orphanages?
Well, for the orphanage I work at, we're always looking for partner churches, people that want to come to Mexico for, maybe a few days or a week to help and see and meet the girls. But the financial need right now is just so great. We are just dying to get into our new building.
Mm-hmm.
So finding a way to help financially is always going to help, because the girls need to eat, and if whether or not they're able to help with building the building or providing supplies for the building, there are ongoing day-to-day expenses as well.
Mm-hmm. So my dad told me that you're also a self-published devotional author. Well, what is a self-published devotional author?
Well, I'm self-published on Amazon, so there's a whole process for publishing books of any kind on Amazon, and my husband helps me with that. He's a retired pastor. um, but a devotional, that's a special kind of book where in the way I do it, I take a book of the Bible and I walk through the book of the Bible a little chunk at a time, and I share the reflections that
Mm-hmm.
God's giving me so that people can maybe understand the Bible better, um, maybe have insights they hadn't thought of. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been doing that since before the pandemic. Since 2019, I've been publishing
Wow.
books, and I've got the whole New Testament. We just published the last volume of the New Testament, so that
Wow.
was that was kind of exciting.
Okay. So, how do self-published devotional authors get paid?
Well, we get I would say, very small um, royalty on each book sold. So with Amazon, we've self-published, but then they print on demand. It's kind of great. So
Mm.
I don't have to have a whole big supply of books here. I don't have to purchase a whole bunch like the traditional author would have to, get through a publisher and publish, get a whole bunch of books and then
Mhm.
sell those. Well, with Amazon, they will print on demand. So that's great.
Wow.
But then our little bitty royalty isn't so big. But hey, I'm not in it to be rich. I'm in it to get the word of God back into people's hands and hearts. So
Mhm.
that's my motivation.
Okay. So, are there any self-published authors real authors?
Oh, yes. Don't even ask that question. We are real authors indeed. We have written something and we've published it for public consumption. So, yes, we are real authors.
Okay. So, how much can you make per book from self-publishing?
Uh, I probably make about between three and $4 per book after Amazon takes their little cut.
Mhm. So, how do you become a self-published devotional author?
Well, you decide that you have something that you want to write about, and you write it, and you know that somebody wants to read it. And it's always, I've seen a lot of books on Amazon that I'm wondering who would ever want to read that. But if you've got something that's burning inside you that you want to share with the world, I think that the print version or, books are a great way to distribute that. So you get on Amazon and they'll walk you through exactly what you need to do. Have your manuscript. I do it in a Word document. And so then my husband takes the Word document, he does a few little things to it to get it just right, and then he uploads it to Amazon and then hits the publish button. It's really quite
Mhm.
simple. And Amazon has some tutorials that will help you walk through that as well.
Okay. So, what are the benefits of being a self-published author?
From my experience, it's the fact you don't have to have boxes and boxes of books. You aren't the one responsible for selling the actual book itself. Now, granted, I have copies of my book, but
Mhm.
it's only basically for display. But I have a lot of author friends who have boxes and boxes of books they're afraid they'll never sell. And so they
Mhm.
put a lot of money into that and they're never going to recover their
Mm.
investment. So I
Mhm.
think with self-publishing and print on demand really gives us a lot of flexibility.
Okay. So, how many books have you published?
I've published 23 books total. 19 of those are print. All of them are available on download only as well. But
Mm.
so 4 are download only.
Okay. So, why is this job such a passion for you?
Uh, because God told me to do it. It's kind of, I feel like it's a no-brainer. I was sitting in this very room and I heard his voice, and I know people say that and they no, that never happens. But and I was one of those people that says, how does that ever happen? But I did. I feel like I heard his voice and he says, you're going to write for me.
Mhm.
And when I let that sink in a little bit and got out of my own way, then I just write, and I write every day.
Mhm. So, what's the hardest part about doing this type of work?
I suppose just the getting into the habit, or not letting other things crowd in and, get busy doing other things. You have to stay
Mhm.
focused and be ready for, you know, anything.
Mhm. Got it. So, what's the first step every person should do if they want to publish their own book?
Have a great idea that somebody wants to hear.
Mhm. So, who can you say was the person that helped drive your passion the most?
I suppose my husband. He's been a great inspiration to me. He he's always, um, well, he edits every single word I write. And so I know that it's theologically sound because he's got his PhD in biblical interpretation. Um, but he's been a cheerleader. He's encouraged me. And when he tells me that what I'm writing has touched him,
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard this from other pastors too, then I feel that this is exactly what God wants me to be doing.
Well, what advice would you give to my listeners if they wanted to grow up and work in an orphanage?
Well, it's not going to make you a lot of money, especially if you do it here in Mexico. But if your heart is for children, then follow your heart. There are so many children in need here in Mexico. You have no idea. And if your listeners have that heart, I would love to connect them with the orphanages I'm aware of in our area.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's the craziest thing that's happened while you were doing your passion?
I would say that God moved me. I think that he wanted me to work for the orphanage more than just on a volunteer basis, and so he worked it out that I had to move, and I'm moving closer. I'm actually 5 minutes
Ah,
away from the orphanage now. They used to live next door, but their landlord wanted to sell the property, and so they had to move. And now they're like a half-hour drive away from me. And um, but now with this move, I'm 5 minutes away.
I see. Well, what's the best advice that you've ever received, and who gave you that advice?
The best advice I've ever received is to be grateful in all situations. Not for every situation, but to be grateful in all situations. And I've gotten that advice from, I guess, my husband. Actually, the Bible. I could even go back there. Um, to be to be grateful in all situations. If you approach a problem or a stress with grateful heart, it's not as stressful.
Mm-hmm. But what was the very first job that you've ever had?
Oh, that's a long time ago, Tiberius. I was a tray carrier at Bishop's Buffet. So
Okay.
picture I was in this little dress and we had to carry the trays of the people that was going through the line picking their food at a buffet, and then
Mm-hmm.
we carried the tray to the table for them. And there was the exact way we were supposed to put all of the plates on the table. The silverware went in the right place. I mean, it was something, but I did that for probably a year. And
Okay. Well, was
I,
there anything you learned from that job that helps you become a missionary or a self-publisher?
no, I can't make a connection there other than working with people. I realize that I love to work with people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what message do you want to tell children all over the world about doing the work that you do?
That God loves them, and that God will give you exactly what you need to do what he wants you to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, let's take a quick break to pay some bills. And we are back here with Dana Hagstrom, that volunteers in an orphanage and also is a self-publisher. Let's get into it. So, Dana, if you could go back 10 years and tell yourself something, what would it be?
Oh, to listen to God. I think back 13 years ago, I was still working a full time job as a paralegal. I was doing all the things as a pastor's wife, not being able to really even breathe. Um,
Wow.
so life now is so much different, but listening to God, that is something I I should have done when we got to Mexico. I wasted a lot of time doing some other things. I could have been working with these kids a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm. So, what was the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
Wow. Well, my first husband was abusive, and that was not a very wise choice for me. Um, but it made me a stronger person. And once I recovered from that, I've I am a stronger person, and I've helped a lot of other women to realize
Mhm.
they have value.
Mhm. So when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
Well, I play piano and I read and I swim. My husband and I swim several
Ah,
times a week. I love to exercise and enjoy Mexico. I love we love to explore and
okay.
meet new people.
So, do you play video games? And if you do, what's your favorite one?
Oh, I play video games. I'm addicted to video games. I should have said that in what do you do in your spare time? Because that's really what I find myself doing a lot of. But they're all on my phone. I don't
Oh,
play video games on my computer because it's old and it just doesn't work. But yes, I graduated from
okay.
Candy Crush 5, 10 years ago, and I have a number of different games that I love to play.
Okay. Well, what's your favorite one?
Uh, right now, I really like one that involves numbers.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know the name of it, but
It's okay. So, what is your favorite book to read that you have not written?
well, that's probably an obvious answer, but the Bible. I really feel like God is speaking to us, everyone, in the pages of the Bible, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
hear His voice. So that's my favorite book.
I see. Okay. Okay. Now, can you tell me that one story? You know, remember, this is a kid's show. But the one story, well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on. You can tell me.
Oh, you sure? You sure about that? Well, that I am probably the world's number one procrastinator. That that I wait to the very last minute to do absolutely everything, and it always works out. That's not what I'm not supposed to tell you, is that it always works out. Sometimes when people procrastinate, they
It
crash and
doesn't
burn.
work out.
That's right. I've just in my life been very fortunate that my procrastination has led to good things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I normally do the same thing as a procrastinator.
Is that right?
But 99% of the time, it doesn't work out for me.
Sorry.
So, yeah, we're kind of opposites of procrastinators, but it's cool.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
Um well, I got 4 kids, 3 grandchildren, 2 dogs.
Okay, so do you have a Facebook or website for my listeners who want to follow you?
I do. I am active or fairly active on social media. I used to be a lot more, but my blog, I write daily on my devotional blog, which is the inspiration for my books, and that's b-still.org.
Well, what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
You've asked me a lot of questions, Tiberius. I don't know of one. You did a great job.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks to you, Dana, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
I would love to. I love math.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius!
sent you.
Tiberius's favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And now it's time for Math Corners. Thank you so much, Dana, for helping me with Math Corners. This week, we're going to do some more multi-step word problems. My dad is always good at finding new problems for me to solve. And today, we're going to talk about studying for exams. So, Kathy studied for an exam at Starbucks. She bought a muffin for $3, a coffee for $4, and a sandwich for $6. If she came into the coffee shop with $20, how much did she have when she left?
For me?
No, I got you.
Okay.
Well, first is a real world problem because we do know that kids always like to study for exams and they do enjoy Starbucks for a bit of energy. Okay, so to solve this issue, you first have to figure out the total of the items that she purchased. So 6 plus 4 is 10, and add the 3 and you get $13 total. Well, that was really easy, so you have to try from the 20, and then she has, 20 minus 13 is $7. So she only has $7 left. I think it still might be a little bit off because they forgot about the sales tax. It's fine, though. Well, Dana, do you ever study in a coffee shop before an exam?
Well, Starbucks didn't come around till the 90s, and I was long out of high school and college by then. So no, sorry.
Okay. Well, I bet you had to pay sales tax either way.
Yep. Sales tax on coffee for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, my teacher said that I would use math every day. How do you use math in your work?
Well, keeping expenses. As a missionary, you need to, account for that for tax purposes. And so I'm always doing that, as well as helping the girls with their homework at the orphanage. So those are some ways that I apply math every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Dana, for your help with Math Corners.
You're welcome.
And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the Heart of a Lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. This week, we're going to talk about leadership. For me, I think leadership is the act of loving what is good, having self-control, and being disciplined. The qualities of leadership are providing guidance and direction, organization, and being a positive influence on others. Well, this week, I was looking at some of my 3D printing projects, and this one that I was working on was a cylinder maze. This was cool because you would be able to hide your stuff inside the cylinder and open it up by solving the maze. My math tutor, Swami, helped me with it for hours and hours, and I learned how to make and produce this cool project. The process of showing me how to make this is guidance and direction, and it was a positive influence on me, so thanks, Swami. So, Dana, did you see or use leadership at all this week?
Yeah, I use leadership every week, with the girls for sure. I'm always trying to empower them and to help them to be a better person.
Mm-hmm. Well, of all of the Heart of a Lion virtues, which is the one that you see the most?
I think it's between leadership and integrity.
Okay. Well, why?
Well, I always want to lead with integrity. So to me they kind of go together. And for me then too, obedience comes into that. But what are you obedient to? And I'm obedient to God and God's word. So
Mm-hmm.
I love Lion, and I love what it stands for. But I think integrity and leadership together are so powerful, and it really makes for strong, trusting relationships.
Mm-hmm. Well, we should always try and be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Dana Hagstrom for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking to you today. I think we learned a lot about what happens at an orphanage and a little bit about self-publishing.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I would love to continue the conversation with anybody interested.
No problem. And do you mind giving your social media and website again?
Okay. My website is b-still.org. I'm also on YouTube at Faith Business, and you can find me on Amazon. Just search on my name, Dana Hagstrom, and my books will come up.
Got it. And also you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 1490 AM, KINT 98, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air on my show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Dana, are you subscribed yet?
Yes, I am.
That's good. Also, and be sure to leave a comment and tell me what you think of my latest episode. Also, be sure to listen next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.